We're talking once again with Sandi Kurland from the CASL organization. And this time we're talking about the most amazing local training you can find anywhere in the state of California or the nation for that matter. Those are leadership development days. Sandi got these kind of grown from seeds and then they just exploded over the last 15 years within California. Sandi, tell us all about leadership development days.
Yeah, I can still recall being a new ASB advisor and wondering where all the training was of teaching kids how to be leaders.
Mhm.
And I stumbled upon like experiential learning, which is the best way to learn, which is of course like you experience it. Because I always struggled teaching concepts like taking initiative. I could never get my students to like
Mhm.
take initiative or listen well or have empathy for others, like all these interesting, we call them leadership skills, which are really like great human skills.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, oh, I realized that we're teaching the activities, and then we reflect and kind of secretly be like, oh, and you learned this concept along the way. Is kind of what we would do now. And I was like, maybe I should just make this more intentional, where we really are doing activities geared towards that exact skill. So thus leadership development days, which are of course something that are near and dear to my heart, because I think that they're leadership training without a title, because it's one of those things where we don't really talk about homecoming or noontime activities. It's really just based on leadership skills. Because I always say we always take the same kids to the trainings over and over and over, and they become experts while you have 40 of those and the other 2,000 kids on your campus are kind of trailing behind. So I feel like to get everyone on board, it's really cool to gather groups of students on your campus, like avid kids, athletics, yearbook, like all those kids that are leading in some fashion on your campus, and then gathering them together and learning together. So
Yeah, what a great opportunity to really broaden the realm of leadership training on your campus. Now, you've done many different formats of these LDDs. I know back when I used to do them with you, it was my high school students would train middle school kids from around our community, and they would come to the school, get a chance to see the high school campus and connect with high school mentors that they would really just, I mean, I would hear freshmen come in and be like, "Oh my gosh, you were at my LDD!" Ah! And so that connection was so amazing. But so, what are some of the other formats of LDDs that you've done when they've been in person and when they
yeah,
will be again?
right. Well, and kind of the same thing now, because we still like obviously do that. But I think the format that you're talking about, Jeff, is like when high school, like as a high school teacher, I was honestly secretly recruiting from my middle school, and I would be like invite them up to do things, and then they kept talking about it and who they remembered the high school kids' names and they like role modeled. I was like, oh, I think this is something. So the original concept was inviting your middle school up and having your high school host it
Mhm.
and creating that connection. And then, of course, all of you are more brilliant than I. And you were like, hey, Sandi, we'd actually like it like just our school and our leagues, like our district leagues of, sports people. And I was like, that's brilliant. And then middle school teachers would call me and say, like, we'd love to have that same connection with our elementary school. Like, we'd love to. And I was like, you're brilliant too. And then it became like great for avid kids. And so everyone really kind of called me with their vision. And then we went with that because we realized also California is just so wide and varied
Mhm.
all over. And so I learned that there's little like microisms of places and people everywhere. And so advisors knew their market better than I. And so they were like, this is what we need. And I was like, yes, we could do that.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, it's community based, so we have that local element because we've got our regional with our area conferences and statewide with CASL and CADA. So this allows that real lower cost and lower transportation. I had schools that would actually walk over from their school to ours, so there was no transportation costs at all. What is
Well,
this?
I remember when I was in high school, my middle school was literally like walking distance.
Oh
And
yeah,
we had never even really done anything with them. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
right,
And it took me like a year. I was like, well, oh, let me walk across the tennis court
yeah.
and go visit the middle school people who I will be working with, later on. And of course, like you want the best district, as you kind of talked about community. So I think, yeah, that's why it's like really heartful.
For sure. Now, with most schools being shut down this year and not having in person learning, I shouldn't say that. Schools have not been shut down. The physical buildings have been shut down. School's still in session. But without being able to get together in a gym and congregate, how has CASL pivoted the LDD program this year?
Yeah, great question. Because again, they were based off of experiential learning. So whenever we would create curriculum, I always ask myself, like, what's a way someone could not participate in this? And if I found a way they could not participate, then that piece of the curriculum was thrown out. Because like everything had to be like, they are going to be engaged the entire time. So when it became, virtual, again, we kind of use that same concept of like, okay, if we're really doing this, because they're called Leadership Unmuted, because the joke is like, kids all stay, I can't believe kids stay muted and they stay with their video off. And I was like, oh, we can't have this. So they're called Leadership Unmuted. And again, we like geared all the activities to where you would have to show, you would have to say something. And it's interesting because I think they sometimes develop those habits from some of their classes, or sometimes they can get away with that. And they're very like habit driven. And we're like, no, you can't do that for the next, couple hours. Like you have to stay unmuted because we are talking and you were talking. So all this to say, we've created the curriculum to be where you, in order to participate, you have to stay unmuted and you have to stay with your camera on. And then we always gear the curriculum towards some educational trends that I think is really important. And of course, this year it was an obvious one, which was mental wellness. So all of the curriculum this year is really based off of that. We don't say like, hey, here's an activity about mental wellness, but we do activities and then we talk about it. And it really is geared towards having them have a little more introspective of what makes them happy and joyful, and connecting it to their values and seeing like a value-driven life really is what you're looking for. So
very cool. And then schedule wise, the actual training itself, the LDD for the attendees is about how long?
So it's 3 hours. The interesting thing is like when you're doing it physical, we're like, what time do sports need the gym? That's what I'm leaving. And so now we're more like, what 3 hour block do you have? So we've done them from 9 to 12. We've done them from 6 to 9 at night. Like they're all over the place.
Great.
So we really just need a 3 hour block plus a 2 hour block for training your facilitators.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the part I loved. My kids I think my kids got so much out of it being the trainer, being trained and then working with the students. It was such a reciprocal activity for both the attendees as well as the students that were training. So
interesting that we like call them leaders the whole time, but really the point is like I realize they can get away with not being a leader. Like they could go to an area conference and maybe not say anything and just sit and watch. But here you're kind of forced to be the leader. So yeah, my students too, Jeff, are like the same way. At the end of the day, they're like, oh, we're so tired. Oh my goodness, it was so easy. Like, welcome to
the life of a teacher. Yes.
Exactly. So yeah, but the 2 hour training for facilitators is phenomenal. The reason most people want to host is they do get that special training, which is really cool. So the cool thing is, again, like now it doesn't matter what area you're from, where normally you're searching for that LDD that's within your proximity of space. And now you can just go online and pick any one of them. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we did some of those, some of the first ones where schools all over California came together. That was fantastic. So CADA1.org/LDD. You can find more information on Leadership Development Days. And then in the CADA programs booth in the virtual exhibit hall, I think you're going to possibly have Brody Castor in there.
Yeah.
So he'll be answering questions about LDDs. So stop in and say hi to Brody. He loves visitors. And look into LDDs for the upcoming school year or even the spring to get your student leaders trained. And thank you again, Sandi, for joining us. And happy mixtape.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Bye.